Order! Order! You are an incorrigible delinquent at times. Behave yourself, man!
Now you remember the good old days when Alex Salmond and Donald Trump were best buddies? No? Well, there they are, the two of them, together attending the Dress to Kilt fashion show in New York. Happy as can be. How times change. Earlier this week, the former Scottish First Minister was quizzed on LBC Radio about Mr. Trump and had this to say.
His comments about, banning all Muslims from America. If anybody else was saying that sort of thing, if it was a preacher or something, he'd be banned from the UK for that sort of racist stuff. So I think it's a very fair point for people to say, well, just because somebody's a presidential candidate, are they allowed to say things which would be unacceptable if they were being made by a hate preacher, which I suspect is why 500,000 folk have signed the petition.
Well, that didn't please Donald Trump. He hit back, declaring, "This was the genius who destroyed big sections of the Scottish landscape with ugly, money-sucking, bird-killing industrial windmills, with oil now down at an all-time low and taxes an all-time high to pay for these monstrosities." And the Donald went on. Additionally and disgracefully, this is the man who freed on humane grounds Abdul Basit al-Megrahi because he wanted to be kind-hearted to a terrorist who blew up Pan Am Flight 103 over Lockerbie. Megrahi and others were laughing out loud at what a stupid man Alex Salmond is. He's an embarrassment to Scotland. Well, joining me now from Straken is the former First Minister of Scotland, Alex Salmond. His brief now is International Affairs and Europe. Alex Salmond, stupid man, totally irrelevant, embarrassment. How dare he say that of a former First Minister? But it's sad when old friends fall out, isn't it?
Well, I wouldn't overrate the friendship. I've actually met the Donald twice in my life, Andrew. And incidentally, I don't think the Megrahi thing is a major argument between us, because that was in 2009. The Donald offered to endorse me as First Minister of Scotland in 2011, an invitation I refused, and incidentally, I managed to get by without his support.
Probably a good call there. Should he be banned from entering Britain for his remarks about Muslims? Would you vote to ban him?
Well, what should happen in the policy, but this is a policy position, is that the Home Secretary should consider Donald Trump's remarks in the same way as she's considered the remarks of hundreds of other people. And she should do it in exactly the same criteria. That's the policy. My opinion is, yes, I would probably ban the Donald, because I think it would do him some good. He wants to ban all Muslims from the United States. I want to ban all Donald Trumps from Scotland.
But with the collapse of the oil price and the North Sea now shedding thousands of jobs, don't you need Trump investments in Aberdeen and in Turnberry more than ever?
Well, I think the straight answer to that is no. I don't actually think it's about the economic stuff. But let me explain why, Andrew. Donald's investments in Aberdeenshire are about 1/10, maybe less than that, of what he originally promised. But in the meantime, he's been objecting, not successfully in terms of the court action, but he's lost that 3 times running, but successfully in terms of delaying vital £200 million investments in offshore wind demonstrators, which would have been exactly the sort of energy technology which would have been a great string to the bow at a time of low oil prices here in the northeast of Scotland. And if you take his investment in Turnberry, for example, then there's nothing wrong with Donald's golf courses. The problem is that Trump Turnberry is unlikely to ever get onto the open circuit. Precisely because of the same reasons that the PGA in America is considering withdrawing from the Doral tournament in South Florida. So if Turnberry doesn't get an open, then that costs the Scottish economy £100 million. So in economic terms, I think the balance is very substantially against Mr. Trump's investments.
Point. But if he was to pull out of the Aberdeen project and Turnberry, which is the world-famous golf course in Troon, who would take over?
I don't think there'll be any lack of possibilities in Turnberry. Turnberry is one of the greatest golf courses in the world. It's held the finest 2 Open Championships since the Second World War. And I don't think the golf course in Balmady would lie idle either. You always get buyers for such projects, but I think the association with Donald Trump is now net damaging for the Scottish economy.
Okay.
But that, incidentally, Andrew, is not why I'm saying he should be considered on the same basis as everyone else.
I understand that.
We banned American shock jocks and Dutch MPs.
Indeed.
For saying things not about, incidentally, terrorism or inciting violence or being part of organised crime. Donald Trump isn't in any of these things, but basically because of making statements which, in the words of the formulation, are not conducive to the public interest.
So what did you get more wrong, Mr. Salmond? Your assessment of Mr. Trump or your sums on the size of an independent Scotland's oil revenues?
Well, 8 years ago, I would have found it difficult to know that Donald Trump was going to run for President of the United States. I think most people would have found that a pretty incredible proposition. And I wasn't to know that he was going to make a range of statements which are deeply offensive and deeply unacceptable, whether they apply to Mexicans or Muslims. So yes, I did not anticipate that happening, nor did I anticipate, incidentally, he'd only go forward with a tenth of the investment he promised, nor did I anticipate...
All right, no. It's just a yes or no. Which one?
Vital, investments in the northeast of Scotland. I didn't anticipate any of these things, Andrew.
All right. Well, we thank you for joining us. We're going to have to leave it there. But you've won the prize for the best ever backdrop to an interview down the line that I've done. Just stunning behind you there. Alex Salmond from your constituency, thank you for joining us.